Hello, I did my first bit of plein air painting last week. I went down one morning to Trevornan's Cove, my local beach. It was close to high tide, so the whole beach was actually covered, but I sat on a bench and concentrated on the cliffs. I brought my usual travel art bag with me and a Talon's Art Creations sketchbook. I did a loose watercolour of the cliffs first, using this Funto watercolour palette I put together. Then I did the second watercolour, which is pretty similar to the first, just a little bit more zoomed into the cliffs. It was a really cold morning and my watercolour took ages to dry, so I decided to finish them off at home. I bought some peppermint tea to keep me warm, and I was joined for a while by this little robin. So my watercolours were just intended as a first layer, or the splodge part of what I call my Splodge and Scribble paintings. I like the slightly subdued colours of the paint layer, and I decided to use my Derwent drawing pencils to go over the top because I felt they were a similar kind of colour palette. I wanted to keep the sketch on the looser side, and so I was determined not to fill in all of the areas of blank paper. I've really been enjoying using my little green Funto watercolour palette. I'll link to a video in the description box down below on the colours I chose to put in it. But for this picture I mainly used haze brown for the cliffs, along with lutea orange and a tiny touch of Magello Mission Gold's quinacridone permanent magenta. For the blues I used a mixture of cobalt blue and Schminker's Prussian green. I decided to leave the sketch here. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it and I quite like the outcome, and I'm glad that I managed to keep it relatively loose. I then go through the same process with my second sketch, though I use slightly different colours this time. In the watercolour I'd introduced a little bit of purple, which was a purple that I'd mixed myself based on A Gallows Naturno, because it was before I'd bought my A Gallows Naturno tube, and this was a watercolour palette I could only fill from tubes. As well as the Derwent drawing pencils, which are the darker brown barrels, I also used some Derwent Lightfast pencils, which have barrels of lighter wood. So nothing special, but it was nice getting out and doing the watercolours in the first place and having a bit of a scribble back at home. Then at the weekend I visited this spot which looks out over Perranporth Beach. It was quite high tide, but I still took a couple of photos. This was one of them, and working in my Talon's Art Creations sketchbook again, this time I decided to do a base layer of Pan Pastels. I use a soft tool just to fill in the basic areas. I'm only intending to use the Pan Pastels as a background. I blend them in quite firmly so that there's no loose powder on the surface, so that other mediums will be able to go over the top. At this stage though, I don't even know what other mediums I'm going to be using yet. I'm just making this one up as I go along. After my initial Pan Pastel layer then, I come in with some Derwent drawing pencils, and afterwards with some Ranger Distress crayons. I didn't really know where I wanted this to go, but I knew that I wasn't happy with it at this point. So I decided I'd got nothing to lose and got out my acrylic paint. I thought the smoothness of the Pan Pastel needed contrasting with more texture. I needed to do more on this one really. I wasn't thrilled with where I left it. So at some point I might go back and try and do some more on it so it doesn't annoy me too much seeing it in my sketchbook. I do still like the idea though of putting mixed media over the top of Pan Pastels. I think the contrast between the smooth and some extra texture could be quite good fun. I just need a slightly better plan next time. I thought I'd share it you anyway because it might spark some fun ideas for yourself. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have a good week. Bye!